Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 22 will be covered today. Human affairs need to be managed under the divine law. These are the references, and all excerpts in this talk are taken from the meanings of the Quran, volume 1. And this is our contact in case there is any question or query regarding this presentation or any of our previous presentations. Recap verse 21, the purpose of human creation. The verse 21 being analyzed covers a number of important aspects related to the creation of man, that is Adam, on planet Earth. The verse starts by addressing the whole of mankind of all times, i.e., past, present, and future. Mankind is invited to ponder on the choice to obey the laws covered under Rububiyat so that the purpose of human creation can be met under the divine attribute of Rabb. And we know Rabb means that Allah has taken responsibility to provide guidance to everything in the universe from their initial point to their final point. And in the case of man, Wahi is provided, that is in the form of the Quran, to provide guidance to man in this life, which is connected to the life of the hereafter. Merely living life at an animalistic level will meet the needs of the physical body, but the requirements for human self-development will not be fulfilled. Human beings are created for a far higher purpose, which means to rise above the animalistic level by following the guidance of the Quran. The Quran provides guidance for those among you, now this is being addressed by the Quran, who choose to follow the path defined by it in order to become muttaqeen. And muttaqeen means those who wish to avoid the pitfalls of life, the dangerous alleys of life, so that they can live a successful life in this world. Without becoming muttaqeen, you will not be able to accomplish the purpose of your creation and will live earthly life at an animalistic level. And so all those latent potentials which are kept within you in order to create a new life within you will remain unused. So that is an important point which we shared in our last presentation, that each human child comes with certain latent potentials. And some of those potentials can be brought out under the man-made system and its values. But many others remain hidden, will remain latent unless these are exposed to the guidance of the Quran. This failure on your part will deprive you of the benefits associated with the developed self, and that developed self, which is to manifest those latent potentials by using the permanent values of the Quran. Without this self, the system of deen based on Rububiyat cannot be established. An overview of today's presentation. After pointing to the aim of the creation of man in verse 221, the Quran draws our attention to the outer world and the universe. Since everything is carefully planned and created, hence man needs to look for potent signs in Allah's creation using his intellect and reasoning. Despite being spherical and undergoing its rotation, the earth serves as a place for our finite abode without our noticing this movement of the earth. The law of gravity holds the solar system together, and the sun and moon affect the earth. For example, its climate, atmosphere, daily tides, etc. The hydrological cycle is put in place to manage water distribution across the planet to make biological life possible. This is all with the purpose to produce the means of sustenance for human beings. All this is part of a carefully planned scheme of Allah which needs human attention and reflection. So we need to look at these external signs and then look at our own self and then be able to come to this conclusion that human creation is for a very high purpose. Whatever is in the planet is there for the use of the whole of mankind and not meant to be kept in the hands of a few. Thinking and doing this is against the very purpose of human creation. These means of sustenance are spread throughout the planet so that mankind can manage their distribution and utilization equitably according to the permanent values. Not doing this will lead to chaos and conflicts in the world. plenty of these conflicts and chaos we can see in the word of 2024. Now we go to the verse 222. The means of sustenance placed in the earth by Allah are for the whole of mankind for all times. And the verse is, Allazi ja'ala lakumul arda firasham was samaa binam wa anzala minas samai ma'an fa akhraja bihi minas samarati rizqan lakum. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. You will receive this protection as per the universal program of Rububiyat, according to which He created the means for your abode on planet Earth. Disperse the stellar bodies in the skies so that through mutual attraction and movement these remain within their respective orbits. Then made such an arrangement that water comes down from the skies so that the means of sustenance are produced for you. It is obvious that all these means of sustenance are made available to you from the direction of Allah without any recompense and return. That is, all these are completely free. The ownership on this is that of Allah. You are only permitted to bring it under your usage. Therefore, do not do this that you make men as its masters. And that is an important point, and that will be discussed in subsequent slides. If you resort to this, then this will be committing shirk with Allah. And shirk means associating partners in the domain of Allah and accepting, for example, man-made laws instead of the laws put forward by the Quran. The earth, despite being spherical and in rotation, provides a safe abode for man. The common translation of the verse is, who has made the earth your couch and the heavens your canopy, and sent down rain from the heavens, and brought forth herewith fruits for your sustenance. Then set not up rivals unto Allah when you know the truth. And it's quite difficult from this translation to try to connect the two parts of this verse. That is the first part, which is pointing our attention to the heavenly bodies, and then is about the hydrological cycle, and then it states, then set not up rivals unto Allah when you know the truth. And this will be explained in detail in subsequent slides. To understand in what manner Allah has organized the system of the universe in order to fulfill His responsibility of razakiyat. And razakiyat over here means to provide rizq, that is the means of sustenance. And we should keep in mind that when Quran talks about rizq, it includes both aspects. That is the physical aspect of providing nourishment and means of sustenance, and also human self-development. All the needs of the human self-development will also come under this term rizq. Ponder first on this fact, how He has laid and spread out the earth despite its being spherical. Furshan means to lay out and spread something. In order to understand what the state is of a spherical thing on a small scale, stand on a dome, you will see that despite its great size, there is only a very small fraction which is flat and on which it is possible to sit or lie down. From the point at which its roundness begins, no one can even stand there. He slips and falls down. But the state of this spherical earth is strange. Not only is it round, it is also busily spinning at an electrifying high velocity. The Quran has elucidated this rotation of the earth by stating, you sit on it peacefully and it also keeps revolving. Signs in the creation of the earth. Observe its being firashun from another angle. No matter how spread out the topmost part of a spherical thing may be, that is its flatness, if you keep walking on it, then such a point will arrive when its roundness will be before you. And after this roundness, that emptiness in which that thing is suspended are held. But the state of the spherical earth is such that travelers start walking from one point on it, and after completing a full circle, come back to that same point. They neither see any of its roundness nor that emptiness in which this is suspended. In place of this emptiness, that horizon is continuously visible, where, in common vernacular, the earth and sky appear to be meeting. Just reflect what an astounding form of frashun this is. And that is important. The whole point of providing this explanation is that we should reflect that all this is created for man, for his finite life on this planet. And that is for a higher purpose, that is to develop himself and to create a system of deen in which there is no fear and grief. The Quran has also called this Mahdun. A soft and level bed is called Al-Mihad, i.e. level and very comfortable. It is in connection with this that Allah has declared about Himself, and we have spread out the spacious earth. How excellently do we provide good conveniences. Sama and earth explained. These two terms are used in the verse, so there is some explanation of these two terms. In this verse 222, where Sama and earth are mentioned, a discussion about Sama will be carried out later. Presently, it will be sufficient to say that each one of those things that is covering us from above is called Sama. Hence, the roof of a house is called Sama'un. The fact is that above and below are, however, relative positions. And that is how we should view all the stellar bodies around us, that is, in the universe. From this point of view, in relation to something below it, everything which is above, that thing will be called Sama'un. And Ardun is below, in relation to something which is above it. Keeping this interpretation in view, bring this verse of the Quran to mind and be entranced. The Quran declares it is Allah who has created numerous heavenly bodies in such a way that each Sama has one earth. And that is very interesting that every Sama has an earth that is, from human perspective, something higher and something lower. So these are relative positions of these stellar bodies. Samaun also means clouds because they are above us. In verse 222 being discussed, Sama Binan is stated. The meaning of Binaun is a building, i.e. whatever is constructed is called Binaun. Furthermore, it also means a roof. Since the word Farashun, that is floor, appears for earth, therefore a more suitable meaning for Binaun will be ceiling. At another place, the Quran has stated, and we made the Sama a protected ceiling. Further reflections on this verse. In other words, such a roof which is safe in itself and a means of protection for you too. Experts in astronomy inform us that what are known as meteors or shooting stars are in reality small pieces, that is debris of the solar system, which disintegrate and fall down because of the force of gravity and keep falling down like rain. At times, planet Earth also comes in front of this rain. Though these are termed small pieces, they are in fact so large and fall down with such force that even if one of these falls on the earth in that state, this planet will become devastated. What we call atmosphere or sama is a cover with a thickness of miles, consisting of layer upon layer of dense gases, which surrounds the whole of planet Earth. When these meteors enter this atmosphere, it grinds these stones into dust, and that which we call a shooting star is the shining dust of these. Occasionally, some rock from among these misses being ground up and thus falls on the earth. But this is extremely rare. Generally, they become dust in the atmosphere. If the atmosphere did not grind this shower of rocks into ashes, then life on earth would become impossible. So the whole point of the Quran is to explain to us that the creation and purpose of human beings on this planet has a very high purpose. The whole point of the Quran to explain these things is to put before us that our creation is not meaningless. It is for a higher purpose. In this way, this atmosphere serves as a ceiling for us, and we remain protected from the devastations of meteors. As is noted in verse 221, so that you become muttaqi. The whole point is that our stay over here is to become something. And muttaqi means, as I stated earlier, to avoid the pitfalls of life, to dangers of life, and we live our life in peace and without fear and huzn. This and many other forms are created by the system of nature itself and numerous other forms which man himself can create by harnessing the forces of nature. Land cannot be in personal possession. Moving forward from the external universe to the economic world of man, and then observe in it how the self-created system of man destroys it, and how obedience to the laws of Allah protects and guards it from these dangers. The Quran has declared this in a very comprehensive manner, that when rain falls from the skies, crops begin to emerge from the land. The whole issue about this produce and fruits is condensed into one word when it is stated, Rizqallakum. This is means of sustenance and resources for the nourishment of the whole of mankind. The word lakum in this encapsulates the whole economic system of the Quran. First of all, addressing mankind, it was stated, your Rabb who created you. That was in the previous verse. And here it is stated, your rizq, the way in which he has created the whole of mankind, not one category of man, a group, a family, or a nation. The entirety of mankind. Similarly, the rizq bestowed by Allah is not for any specific group, class, or nation. It is for the whole of mankind. Earth, that is land, is a fundamental means of production, and about this the Quran has declared repeatedly and with emphasis that no one can have personal ownership of this, neither any individual nor any group of individuals. First of all, he has declared that earth and sama, the earth and the heavens, are created by Allah alone. When these are the creation of Allah, the question of anyone else having ownership over it does not even arise. He has stated at numerous places that, know you not that to Allah belongs the dominion of the earth and the heavens, and is the cause for the completion of his defined program. So all of this is according to a defined program. And the earlier we understand as mankind this program, the better it is for us, because then we will avoid all the pitfalls of life and all the chaos and bloodshed which we see in our world, that will gradually disappear. The next slide is, land belongs to Allah, not to humans. The means to fulfill those responsibilities which he has assumed for himself to Allah belongs, all that is in the heavens and the earth. Also means this, what is this responsibility of his in order to fulfill which he has created the earth and has kept his control over it. Regarding this, he has stated in Surah Hud, and there is no creature on earth but its sustenance depends on Allah. He has made this fact clear through cross-referencing of the verses by presenting various aspects that the earth is for the benefit of the whole of humanity. No one can have personal possession or monopoly over it. In Surah Ar-Rahman it is stated, and the earth he has laid out for the benefit of all creatures. And Quran has repeated these things to ask mu'mineen to think about it and don't let this go away from their sight, that earth is for the whole of mankind. In Surah Al-Araf it is stated, and we have certainly established you upon the earth and provided for you therein means of livelihood. In another verse, and we have provided therein means of subsistence for you and for those for whom you are not providers. This means such a creation whose sustenance is not the responsibility of humans. Men are only responsible for those herds and livestock which are in their control. It is for this that it is stated regarding the produce from the land, eat therefrom and graze your livestock too. Next slide is, what is bestowed free by Allah must remain free for the use of everyone. It's an important point and we should keep in mind as we progress through the Quran as a system of deen. In connection with herds and livestock, bring to mind that incident of the people of Thamud which has been discussed under verse 2-3 in relation to Anfaq, in which it was said to those leaders of that nation who, having taken the pastures and springs into their private possession, had halted the entry of the herds belonging to the poor and weak, desist from this practice based on blatant dishonesty. This is the she-camel of Allah, and this is the land of Allah. Let the camel of Allah roam free so that it can graze in Allah's land. So putting borders and the limits anywhere on the planet Earth is against this. Who are you to prevent the creation of Allah from being able to benefit from Allah's land? You have no right to place a barrier on this. And never have the bounties of your Rabb been restricted. Those things which are bestowed freely from Allah for the benefit of the whole of creation without any effort or payment and without any recompense, no one has the right to place a barrier on them. They should remain continuously flowing like water. They should remain freely available to meet the requirements of every needy one equally. Next is explaining shirk, that is nid. This term is used in this verse, and now we will look at it. According to the Quran, the means of rizq, i.e. the earth, are created by Allah and only Allah is the owner. Hence, to think that someone else can also be an owner of them will be shirk. This is why in the verse under view, the Quran has stated, so do not make nid of Allah because you know no one can be his nid. The word nid has been used for a partner and an equal of Allah. The meaning of nid is to be a partner, a colleague, the equal of someone, but there is a condition in this that the two entities, which are considered to be the equal of each other, their state should be such that each one of them should draw towards his own self equally. Imdad is the plural of this word nid. Its meaning is clear that when you accept the private ownership of men over land, firstly you will accept them to be equals and of the same status as that of Allah. And we can see plenty of these examples in the world of today where people in power are essentially exploiting others and keeping major share of the means of sustenance in their control, i.e. will accept them as partners, and this is called sharik. And secondly, that the endeavor of each one of them will be to extract the maximum from this fundamental source of risk and its produce towards himself and also to deprive others of it. And of course, over here, as I said earlier, risk will also include human self. So whatever physical effects this has on human beings, this will also affect their psyche. From the system of private ownership of land, whether it is the ownership of one individual or a group of individuals, i.e. some particular tribe, family, clique, party, or the nation's ownership, there cannot be any other outcome than that every owner among these will be in pursuit of accumulating the maximum, never mind if as a result of this, the creation of Allah might die of hunger. Wherever the Quran has mentioned these kinds of imdad, other than Allah, directly or indirectly, their connection is with ownership of the means of sustenance and the distribution of risk. Firstly, just take this verse being discussed. Even in this, after the production of risk, it is stated, so do not attribute to Allah equals. Under Deen, the earth and its resources belong to Allah. And that is important because all these means are available in the earth. It is under the system of Deen established by Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen who are going to carry out the distribution. That is the equitable distribution of these resources as per the permanent values given in the Quran. In Surah Hamim, it is stated, O Rasool, that is the messenger, say to these people, do you do kufr of Allah? That is, you reject what is revealed in the Quran. Of that Allah who created the earth in two stages. The first stage was when it was still so hot that there was no question of the creation of any life and its survival. In the second stage, it was made so cool that survival of life became possible, and it also became possible for the means of sustenance to exist and grow for them. This is that Rabb who is responsible for the rububiyat of the world with whom you are doing kufr. So Quran over here draws our attention to the distribution of all means of sustenance on the planet Earth for the whole of mankind. What is this kufr? That you are establishing imdad with him. That is, considering these human beings in power to be as if these are gods, which they are not. And this will continue till the time this system is established. And you are giving the means of sustenance created by him into the ownership of men. In the next verse it is stated, Allah has created this earth in such a way that through the mountains he established the system of irrigation. The potential has been kept in the soil so that it produces crops. Then through its rotations defined the seasons so that according to these, in different parts of the year, different crops are produced. The aim of this whole system was so that the produce of the earth remains equally available for meeting the needs of all the needy. When this remains within the possession of Allah, then this purpose will keep getting accomplished. But if it is passed into private ownership, then this purpose will not be served. The aspect of self-destructiveness. At another place, it is stated that when man becomes engulfed in trouble, then he makes supplications to Allah with great devotion and meekness. At that time, he does not include anyone else in his prayers. And we see examples of this, particularly under the religious domain, that when people are poor, they supplicate day and night. When they become rich, they just forget about their previous state. But when he achieves some prosperity, then he forgets everything and starts to adopt imdad, that is, partners and associates with Allah. Because of this, he goes astray himself and also misguides others. This is stated to be kufr. You will certainly gain some temporary advantage from this, but ultimately you will be ruined and destroyed. This very fact is described in Surah Ibrahim in these words. Have you paid attention to the state of those people who displayed kufr towards the ne'mah, that is the bounties and favors of Allah? Because everything which is kept in the earth as means of sustenance is considered to be a favor by Allah. In fact, our intellect, which we use in order to live our life, is also a bounty from Allah. And in this way, it deposited the caravan of their nation to that marketplace where there was no buyer for this produce. All their possessions and wealth were wasted. This is termed the destruction of hell. This kufr towards the ne'mah, that is the bounties of Allah, occurred like this. They established nid of Allah, and in this way, by leaving the path leading to Him, people went astray. Tell them that this path of yours will provide you with sustenance of life for a while, but your final abode will be the destruction of hell. And we should keep in mind that at an individual level, we know all of us are going to die, and we have a finite time of abode in this world. So our life has a higher purpose, and the higher purpose is to develop ourselves by following the permanent values. If we become lost in thinking that this life is meaningless and there is no life beyond death, then we are going to get a big surprise in the hereafter. But even in this world, we might get some respite for some time, but ultimately all man-made systems decline and are replaced by other systems. The link between the outer world and the human psyche. In Surah Al-Baqarah, this has been described in even greater detail. It is stated, it is a fact that in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alternation of night and day, and those ships which float about in the oceans and are a means of sustenance for people, in the rain which Allah showers down from the clouds and through it provides new life to a dead land, in those living creatures which move around on earth, in those winds which blow in different directions throughout different seasons, and those clouds which are suspended between earth and space and remain tied in the chains of the laws of Allah. All these signs and manifestations are evidences indeed of this fact for men of understanding, that all these are created by Allah and are in His ownership. But despite this, there are such people who invent imdad of Allah, among whom every single one pulls others towards himself so that his party becomes greater in number and more powerful. But those people who recognize Allah as creator and master, no one can draw them towards themselves. If they are pulled anywhere, it is towards Allah. So the Quran is putting a comparison between two types of people. One who associate others with Allah, and then those who are completely devoted to the cause of Allah and are working towards the system of deen. Accepting two law-giving authorities cannot develop the human self, a very important aspect. If we have two law-giving authorities residing within our mind, within our intellect, then essentially we are ruining our life. We cannot develop ourselves. Why do people become lured towards these false gods? Purely because they have taken the fountainheads of sustenance into their personal ownership, and in this way, there is no other option for those who are deprived and destitute than to approach them willingly and to obey every command of theirs merely for the sake of bread. These are those various gods about whom it is stated, remember, if there had been another deity along with Allah, then the situation would have been such that every god would have pulled its own creation towards itself. And in this way, some gods among these would have overshadowed other gods. The reality is that true Allah is far above those concepts which these people form in their own minds. This is why they are told, do not accept another Allah, that is deity, together with Allah. If you do this, then you will end up humiliated and ruined, because these affect our psyche. That is why it is very important to have belief system which is put forward as Iman in the Quran, because that will provide us unity of thought, and we can then develop ourselves for the system of Deen by doing Saleh deeds. Illustrating it further, the Quran has termed these Ilah, and Ilah over here means all those false gods which people acquire. The Quran has termed these Ilah as deities of the earth, and by this has pointed to such a reality that as we keep probing into this further, page after page of facts and perspectives will keep on opening up before you. It is stated, have they taken other deities for their earthly, that is economic life, about whom they think that they provide them with the means of sustenance? Say to them that, remember, He is Allah in the outer universe and also Allah in the life on earth, the social, communal, and economic life of man. And unlike earthly gods, this sovereignty of His is not based on injustice and tyranny, exploitation and subjugation, but is based on knowledge and wisdom. Ilah means that whose rule should be accepted, whose laws should be accepted, whose laws should be obeyed. Here it is stated that except the one whom you acknowledge as Allah of the outer universe as being in authority and control in your own earthly life too. It is not known to what extent people could comprehend this supreme reality at the time of the revelation of the Quran, but in our times it has become unveiled before us in such a way that no difficulty remains now in understanding it. As we have already described earlier, our era is that of materialism or secularism. Secularism means denial of God, which is of two kinds. One is that denial of God on which the construct of the ideology of life of communism and socialism is based. In other words, right from the start, they deny the very existence of God as an entity. God of the universe. The other kind is that which is prevalent in those nations which call themselves theists. These are those people who, though they accept a God of the universe, reject Him in their earthly life. That is, within their own government, in their own countries, in their own land, they have man-made systems. Whenever God is mentioned to them, they will say that we accept that God has created the universe and this process is in operation and continuing to function according to His established laws of nature. Their Iman in God is confined to this point. As far as their communal, social, economic, and political life is concerned, they say that religion, i.e. God, has nothing to do with this. We will run it according to our own choice and desire. This duality, i.e. a separate God for the universe, that is Ilahul Asma, and a separate God for human life, Ilahul Ard, has become pattern for all of today's followers of God. You may remember that when Western nations, that is Europe and the US, were threatened by the onslaught of communism, they raised this slogan that God's worshippers in the world come and unite to oppose these rejectors of God. By worshippers of God, they meant those who believed in a God of the universe, because none of them believed in a God as being Ilah of the earth. They did not want the laws of the Quran in their own land. Nor do they do so even now. Just observe in what crystal clear words the Quran illustrates this fact 1400 years ago. In Surah Luqman, it is stated, "And if you ask them who it is that created the heavens and earth, they would surely say Allah. Say, Hamd be to Allah, but most of them have no knowledge." And Hamd be to Allah over here means that you need to appreciate that whole of this universe and your own creation is for a purpose, and you should understand, and then you will be in a position to find out that this higher purpose, how beneficial it is for mankind, because it is linked to the life of the hereafter, and in this life you will also become free from fear and huzn. For self-development, the correct concept of Allah is needed. If you ask them who has created the heavens and the earth, they will say that Allah has created them. Say to them that this is certainly correct, but you should also know and accept that Allah's Hamdiyat is not confined solely to the outer universe, it is all encompassing. This aspect of Hamdiyat was covered under Surah Al-Fatiha. This is because to Allah belongs all things in heaven and earth. Verily, Allah is He that is free of all wants, worthy of all hamd. This is because whether it is the heavens or the earth, everywhere sovereignty and authority belongs to Allah. And it is as a result of this that He is declared to be totally self-sustaining and deserving of hamd and appreciation. These are important points with which we should come to terms with, because these are facts of life, that what is stated over here in these verses is that Allah is sovereign and all authority belongs to Him. All laws working in the universe are His. And over here, Quran is asking us that we should follow those laws and those permanent values which are given in the Quran in our own system, so that we get the benefits which are associated with following these values. In Surah Al-Zukhruf, firstly it is stated, if you were to ask them who created the heaven and the earth, they would be sure to reply, they were created by Him who is Aziz and Alim. After this, in 5 verses, that is 43, 10 to 14, the Quran has described in greater detail all those means of sustenance which are created for the nourishment and development of mankind. And then has stated that the state of these worshippers of God who acknowledge Allah as creator is such that, and they attribute some of His servants to being His partners, rather a part of Him. Indeed, man is avowedly ungrateful. And ungrateful means that he cannot get the best from his earthly life. And since this earthly life is connected with the life of the hereafter, and by following man-made laws, he does not develop his self, so that self he is never able to create, which is meant to go to the next life and then evolve further. Few more verses on this aspect. In Surah Al-Mu'minun it is stated, say to whom belongs the earth and whatever is in it. Say if you know. They will say without hesitation to Allah. Say then, will you not bear this fact in mind in all aspects of your life? And this is a very interesting part of this verse, that even those who are atheists, if we talk to them, they will not totally deny that there is someone, some creator, some designer who has created this world. But as far as the man-made world is concerned, they do not wish to accept that there is a possibility of laws for this man-made world as well. And they are quite happy to live within the man-made world, even if there is a fear and grief for others, because they themselves mostly are the beneficiaries of this system. After this, it is stated, ask them who has central control over this splendid system of the universe. They will reply, it is only Allah who has control over this. Ask them again, then why do you not observe the laws of Allah? And this is very obvious, because, for example, the law of gravity is beyond human control. Human beings simply cannot affect the rotation of the earth. They simply cannot influence the whole setup of the solar system. Ask them in whose hands lies the control of the heavens and who is responsible for their sustenance. Who is the one who has central control over this superb and spectacular system of the universe? They will respond, it is only Allah who has control over these. Say, in whose control and authority is everything of the universe, and who can harm him who comes within his protection? But no one in the universe can protect the one who transgresses against his laws. They will also acknowledge that all this also belongs only to Allah. Then ask them that after acknowledging these facts, how is it that you are deluded that what I tell you is not the truth? I do not say anything except that his laws, which he has bestowed through Wahi, should also be in control in human life. I've highlighted over here and who can harm him who comes within his protection. Because once we understand those laws and we know how the law of requital works, then by becoming muttaqi, we know exactly what are the dangers and risks of life even within the man-made system. So over here, self-development also comes into it. Of course, physical death is, one needs protection from the physical death. But if we concentrate on development of the self, then this aspect will become crystal clear. Resolving the issue of rizq. And then after this it is stated, it is not that they are somehow confused in this regard. The issue is that we have sent to them that code of laws which is based on haqq and truth from start to finish. But they refute it since it affects their vested interests and they wish to limit their godliness only to the extent that control and authority in the outer universe belongs to Allah. Because in this way there is no impact on their vested interests, but they do not accept any control and authority of Allah in their communal life. Remember, this kind of acknowledgement of Allah is meaningless. Therefore, these people are liars when they claim that they accept Allah. In Surah Al-Ankabut, first of all, this basic principle is noted. And how many are the creatures who carry not their own provision? It is Allah who feeds them and you. This is because He is all-hearing, all-knowing. Say to them, just reflect how many living creatures are there in the universe who carry their own risk around on their backs. They all receive their means of nourishment according to the universal law of Rububiyat of Allah. Therefore, if you also establish a similar system among yourselves, then all of you will keep receiving rizq in this way. And that is important because when the system of deen is established, then this system works within the permanent values. And within those permanent values, there are a number of these which deal with the distribution of the means of sustenance. This is because Allah hears each and every one and is aware of the needs of each and every one. After this, it is stated that the state of these people is such that though they accept the authority of Allah's laws in the outer universe, they wish to keep him out of the human world. And keep him out of the human world and then suffer under the chaos, conflicts, wars, and bloodshed, and with fear and huzn. The correct concept of Allah is in the Quran, and that is our next slide. The verse after the next one states, if you ask these people who it is that showers down rain from the clouds and through this gives new life to land which is dead, in reply, they will say that all this is indeed done by Allah, and He does it with great finesse. Say to them that when you acknowledge that wherever there is the law of Rububiyat of Allah operating, wonder and admiration are evoked, then why do you not establish that same law in your society? But the problem is that having reached this stage, the emotions of their vested interests will overwhelm their ability to reason and understand. And in this way, they will not make use of this ability. Otherwise, this is not something which is beyond their intellect and reason. We could have quoted here the sayings of renowned scientists, philosophers, and thinkers from Europe, from which this fact would have become apparent, how they acknowledge this fact that there is a law operating everywhere in the outer universe. And these laws are neither devised by these things of the universe, nor are they established by man. These laws are formulated by that same Allah who has created these things of the universe. After noting these kinds of observations of theirs, we would have also described how adamant they are that there can be no practical role for Allah in their political, social, and economic life. And of course, by keeping Allah out of our life and His laws not being obeyed, we are suffering. And that suffering is evident in 2024 very clearly for everyone to see. They are able to legislate laws themselves for this. The only intrusion of religion that they can accept is that people should worship God in their respective ways and hold whatever beliefs they wish, provided these do not clash with national laws. This is what is called the secular system. Nid of Malukiyat. And so over here, this is a very interesting slide, and some aspect of Malukiyat will come before us. Under the system of Batil, these means of rizq remain in the possession of men. Though its forms keep changing, the spirit remains the same everywhere. In Dad, that is, these gods created by man other than Allah have been in existence in every era and are also present today. That which is called the era of ignorance and tyranny, there used to be only one Nid in it, who was called the king. Thus Pharaoh, the representative of dictatorship, had declared, O my people, is it not a fact that the land and the rivers flowing in Egypt are in my dominion? What, are you blind that you do not see this reality? A big claim, and he didn't realize that once he dies, he doesn't own any of these things. This was an era of ignorance in which, though speech may have been abrasive, it was delivered in forthright words. Now we are in a civilized era in which Imdad other than Allah do not make frank speeches. Now they do not say that this is in our possession. For this they have invented a very duplicitous concept which is called the state. And that is another interesting part which is discussed in this slide. The modern Nid, the state. The concept of a state is so vague that it simply does not appear in a precise form before anyone. No one can tell what a state actually is. Where does it reside? How does it legislate its orders? And how does it implement these? And we can see that there are so many organs of this state at the top, and then there is a deep state as well. And the functioning of that deep state nowadays has become very evidently clear. And this exists in every country, and of course then it exists under the most powerful nations in the world. No one knows any of this, but there is such a state which, like Pharaoh, keeps issuing its orders and ruthlessly eliminates those who rebel against it. And the funny part is that we see people being elected as leaders, but they really do not hold the power. It is that deep state which holds the power in their hand. When Mahmud of Ghazna invaded Somnath, he was told that the sacred image of a deity erected in the temple has many supernatural powers. It responds to the prayers of people and fulfills their requests. Mahmud was greatly surprised at this, and he went inside the temple and looked around curiously. And he saw that there was a curtain hanging behind the deity which was not immediately visible. And those voices which people thought were coming from the deity arose from behind this curtain. Despite the objections and resistance from the priests, he tore down this curtain. What he saw was that all the high priests were seated behind the curtain, and in the name of this deity, they did whatever they desired backstage. In modern times, the status of the state is also like that of this deity. If you analyze the business of the state, this reality would become uncovered that whatever is being said and done in the name of the state are in actual fact the decisions or orders of the ruling class, which they issue in the name of the state and compel people to obey them. And of course, we know all these big corporations, intelligence agencies, and other organs of the state play their role behind this facade of democracy. The soul of Ilahul Ard remains the same. It has just adopted a different form, with this difference that at least the deity had a physical form. while the idol of the state has no physical form. Instead of erecting it in some temple, it is erected in the idol house of the minds of the public through propaganda. And nowadays, people are becoming aware of it through social media. The state is decreed to be the owner of the resources of risk, but it is actually in the hands of those few people who govern in the name of the state. The Quran declares all these men who directly or indirectly keep these in their personal possession as andadun min dunillah. Finally, in summary, when verse 222 is analyzed in conjunction with verse 221, it places before us the reality of our creation as human beings and what we need to do to get the best out of our individual and collective life in this world. Through 222, our attention is drawn to an important aspect of the production of the means of sustenance on the earth. Since these means are for the use of the whole of mankind, hence these are dispersed throughout the planet, and by terming these as rizq, the Quran has made it clear that these are abundant and should be distributed by us to meet the needs of every person in the world. And this is only possible when we have a higher purpose of life, and that purpose of life should go beyond our physical death. Without bringing in the concept of Allah as given in the Quran and the concept of the hereafter, it is very difficult for human beings to come to terms with the higher purpose of their own life. If this is not followed, then it will lead to imbalance and chaos among mankind. Then the verse concludes by saying that since all this is provided by Allah for a purpose, if that purpose is not met, then this will lead to associating other partners with Allah. The result of which will be that word which we witness in 2024. The choice is left to us, i.e., either to continue living in the man-made world or to strive for a better world, the blueprint for which is given by Allah in the Quran. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.